We greet you in the love and the light of the infinite Creator. Questioner, we have presently an activity between physical incarnations called the healing and review of the incarnation. Was anything of this nature occurring prior to the veil? I am Ra. The inchoate structure of this process was always in place, but where there has been no harm, there need be no healing. This too may be seen to have been of concern to Logii, which were aware that without the need to understand, understanding would forever be left undone. We ask your forgiveness for the use of this misnomer, but your language has a paucity of sound vibration complexes for this general concept. Questioner, I don't grasp too well the condition of incarnation and the time in between incarnations prior to the veil. I do not understand what was the difference other than the manifestation of the third density yellow ray body. Was there any mental difference upon what we call death? I don't see the necessity for what we call the review of the incarnation if the consciousness was uninterrupted. Could you clear up that point for me? I am Ra. No portion of the Creator audits the course, to use your experiential terms. Each incarnation is intended to be a course in the Creator knowing itself, a review, or shall we say, to continue the metaphor, each test is an integral portion of the process of the Creator knowing itself. Each incarnation will end with such a test. This is so that the portion of the Creator may assimilate the experiences in yellow, physical, third density, may evaluate the basis gained, and may then choose, either by means of automatically provided aid or by the self, the conditions of the next incarnation. Questioner, before the veil, during the review of the incarnation, were the entities at that time aware that what they were trying to do was sufficiently polarized for graduation? I am Ra. This is correct. Questioner, then am I assuming that this awareness was somehow reduced as they went into the yellow ray third density incarnative state, even though there was no veil? Is this correct? I am Ra. This is distinctly incorrect. Questioner, okay. This is the central important point. It seems to me that if polarization was the obvious thing, that more effort would have been put forward to polarize. Let me see if I can state this differently. Before the veil, there was an awareness of the need for polarization towards service to others in third density by all entities, whether incarnate in third density yellow ray bodies or in between incarnations. I assume then that the conditions of which we earlier spoke, one of wealth, you might say, was present through the entire spectrum of experience, whether it might be between incarnations or during incarnations, and the entities just simply could not manifest the desire to create this polarization necessary for graduation. Is this correct? I am Ra. You begin to grasp the situation. Let us continue the metaphor of the schooling, but consider the scholar as being an entity in your younger years of the schooling process. The entity is fed, clothed, and protected, regardless of whether or not the schoolwork is accomplished. Therefore, the entity does not do the homework, but rather enjoys playtime, mealtime, and vacation. It is not until there is a reason to wish to excel that most entities will attempt to excel. Questioner: you have stated in a much earlier session that it is necessary to polarize more than 50% service to others to be harvestable fourth density positive. Was this condition the same at the time before the veil? I am Ra. This shall be the last query of this working. The query is not answered easily, for the concept of service to self did not hold sway previous to what we have been calling the veiling process. The necessity for graduation to fourth density is an ability to use, welcome, and enjoy a certain intensity of the white light of the one infinite creator. In your own terms, at your space-time nexus, this ability may be measured by your previously stated percentages of service. Prior to the veiling process, the measurement would be that of an entity walking up a set of your stairs, each of which was imbued with a certain quality of light. The stair upon which an entity stopped would be either third density light or fourth density light. Between the two stairs lies the threshold. To cross that threshold is difficult. There is resistance at the edge, shall we say, of each density. The faculty of faith or will needs to be understood, nourished, and developed in order to have an entity which seeks past the boundary of third density. Those entities which do not do their homework, be they ever so amiable, shall not cross. It was this situation which faced the Logii prior to the veiling process being introduced into the experimental continuum of third density. May we ask if there are any brief queries at this working? Questioner: let's take then, since we are on the subject of sex, the relationship before and after the veil of disease. In this particular case, venereal disease. Was this type of disease in existence prior to the veil? I am Ra. There has been that which is called disease, both of this type and others, before and after this great experiment. However, since the venereal disease is in large part a function of the thought forms of a distorted nature which are associated with sexual energy, blockage. The venereal disease is almost entirely the product of mind, body, spirit complexes interaction after the veiling. Questioner: You mentioned that it existed in a small way prior to the veil. What was the source of its development prior to the veiling? I am Ra. The source was as random as the nature of disease distortions are at heart in general. Each portion of the body complex is in a state of growth at all times. The reversal of this is seen as disease and has the benign function of ending an incarnation at the appropriate space-time nexus. Thus was the nature of disease, including that which you call venereal and that which you call COVID, which I just added. Questioner: I'll make this statement and you can correct me. As I see the nature of the action of disease before the veil, it seems to me that the Logos had decided upon a program where an individual mind, body, spirit would continue to grow in mind and body, and the body would be the third density analog of this mind. The growth would be continual unless there was an inability for some reason for the mind to continue along the growth patterns. If this growth decelerated or stopped, what we call disease would then act in a way so as to eventually terminate this physical experience so that a new physical experience would be started after a review of the entire process had been taken place between incarnations. Would you clear up my thinking on that, please? I am Ra. Your thinking is significantly clear on this subject. Questioner: The thing I don't understand is why, if there was no veil, the review of the incarnation after the incarnation would help the process, since it seems to me that the entity should already be aware of what was happening. Possibly this has to do with the nature of space-time and time-space. Could you clear that up, please? I am Ra. It is true that the nature of time-space is such that a lifetime may be seen whole as a book or record, the pages studied, rifled through, and reread. However, the value of review is that of the testing as opposed to the studying. At the testing, when the test is true, the distillations of all study are made clear. During the process of study, which you may call the incarnation, regardless of an entity's awareness of the process taking place, the material is diffused and over attention is almost inevitably placed upon detail. The testing upon the cessation of the incarnative state is not that testing which involves the correct memorization of many details. This testing is, rather, the observing of self by self, often with aid, as we have said. In this observation, one seems the sum of all the detailed study. that being an attitude or complex of attitudes which bias the consciousness of the mind, body, spirit. Questioner: now before the veil, an entity would be aware that he was experiencing a disease. As an analogy, would you give me, if you are aware of a case, a disease an entity might experience prior to the veil, and how he would react to this and think about it, and what effects it would have on him? I am Ra. Inasmuch as the universe is composed of an infinite array of entities, there is also an infinity of response to stimulus. If you would observe your peoples, you will discover greatly variant responses to the same distortion towards disease. Consequently, we cannot answer your query with any hope of making any true statements, since the overgeneralizations required are too capacious. Questioner: was there any uniformity or like functions of societies or social organizations prior to the veil? I am Ra. The third density is, by its very fiber, a societal one. There are societies wherever there are entities conscious of the self and conscious of other selves, and possessed with intelligence adequate to process information indicating the benefits of communal blending of energies. The structures of society before as after veiling were various. However, the societies before veiling did not depend in any case upon the intentional enslavement of some for the benefit of others. This not being seen to be a possibility when all are seen as one. There was, however, the requisite amount of disharmony to produce various experiments in what you may call governmental or societal structures. Questioner: in our present illusion, we have undoubtedly lost sight of the techniques of enslavement that are used, since we are so far departed from the pre-veil experience. I am sure that many of service to others orientation are using techniques of enslavement, even though they are not aware that these are techniques of enslavement, simply because they have been evolved over so long a period of time, and we are so deep into the illusion. Is this not correct? This is incorrect. Questioner: then you say that there are no cases where those who are of a service to others orientation are using techniques of enslavement that have grown as a result of the evolution of our social structures? Is this what you mean? I am Ra. It was our understanding that your query concerned conditions before the veiling. There was no unconscious slavery, as you call this condition, at that point. Excuse me. At the present space-time, the conditions of well-meant and unintentional slavery are so numerous that it beggars our ability to enumerate them. Questioner: then for a service to others oriented entity at this time, meditation upon the nature of these little expected forms of slavery might be productive in polarization, I would think. Am I correct? I am Ra. You are quite correct. Questioner: I would say that a very high percentage of the laws and restrictions within what we call our legal system are of a nature of enslavement of which I just spoke. Would you agree with this? I am Ra. It is a necessary balance to the intention of law, which is to protect, that the result would encompass an equal distortion towards imprisonment. Therefore, we may say that your supposition is correct. This is not to denigrate those who, in green and blue ray energies, sought to free a peaceable people from the bonds of chaos, but only to point out the inevitable consequences of codification of response, which does not recognize the uniqueness of each and every situation within your experience. Questioner: is the veil supposed to be what I would call semi-permeable? I am Ra. The veil is indeed so. Questioner: what techniques and methods of penetration of the veil were planned, and are there any others that have occurred other than those planned? I am Ra. There were none planned by the first great experiment. As all experiments, this rested upon the nakedness of hypothesis. The outcome was unknown. It was discovered experientially and empirically that there were as many ways to penetrate the veil as the imagination of mind-body-spirit complexes could provide. The desire of mind-body-spirit complexes to know that which was unknown drew to them the dreaming and the gradual opening to the seeker of all of the balancing mechanisms leading to adepthood and communication with teach learners which could pierce this veil. The various unmanifested activities of the self were found to be productive in some degree of penetration of the veil. In general, we may say that by far the most vivid and even extravagant opportunities for the piercing of the veil are the result of the interaction of polarized entities. Questioner: could you expand on what you mean by that interaction of polarized entities in piercing the veil? I am Ra. We shall state two items of note. The first is the extreme potential for polarization in the relationship of two polarized entities which have embarked upon the service to others' path, or in some few cases, the service to self path. Secondly, we would note that effect which we have learned to call the doubling effect. Those of like mind which together seek shall far more assuredly find. Those of like mind which together seek shall far more surely find. Those of like mind which together seek shall far more surely find. One more time. Those of like mind which together seek shall far more surely find. These have been excerpts from the Law of One, Book 5. And until next time, my friends and family, we leave you in the love and the light of the infinite Creator.